Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles and you're watching Eagle News International. On tonight's headlines. The Russian army claimed on Wednesday it had taken control of the southern Ukrainian city of Kherson as Moscow's invasion of the pro-Western country entered its seventh day. President Joe Biden wins standing ovation on Tuesday in a rousing State of the Union speech seeking to transform bipartisan support for confronting Russia into momentum for broader unity as the U.S. finally emerges from the COVID-19 pandemic. And the United States warns its citizens against traveling to Hong Kong, citing the risk of children being separated from parents as the Chinese city imposes controversial COVID isolation policies. And President Duterte said he's worried about the resurgence of illegal drugs, hoping his successor would continue his campaign against the drug menace. Russia's war against Ukraine is a week old, but its consequences are already reverberating across the globe. It has upended international relations, left Moscow isolated, united a previously divided West, and raised the specter of a nuclear standoff. Russian forces landed in Ukraine's second biggest city today and triggered immediate clashes in the streets of Kharkiv, according to the military, following Moscow's relentless air assault across the ex-Soviet state. Russia stepped up its bombing campaign and missile strikes, hitting Kiev's main television tower, two residential buildings in a town west of the city, and the city of Bila Cherka to the south of the capital. Russian forces pushed into the besieged Black Sea city of Kherson in the south. Its port and railway station are now in Russian hands, according to its mayor.
Шановні харків'яни, сьогодні наш ворог підступно почав обстріли центру міста Харкова та жилих масивів із систем «Граду», а також крилатих ракет. Влучив у площу перед облдержадміністрацією. Зараз підраховуємо жертви серед цивільного населення. Йому нічого інакше не залишається, як отак підступно творити військові злочини. Бо наша армія сильна, ми стоїмо на позиціях.
Так.
А я знищував російську армію, яка спрямувала в мій бік. І піймав їхню міну. І я оказався тут. Обратно?
Так.
Звісно. Буду. Тільки заживу від рани, зразу обратно. Куди їдуть?
The International Criminal Court has already opened a war crimes investigation against Russia since Moscow began its invasion on Thursday. Ukraine said more than 350 civilians, including 14 children, have been killed in the conflict so far. New Delhi said an Indian student was among the victims killed by shelling in Kharkiv. There was no breakthrough in initial talks between Russia and Ukraine Monday, and Russian forces have pressed further into the country. Foreigners living in Ukraine crossed into Poland, desperate to flee as Russia's invasion of the country enters its seventh day. A Tunisian national studying medicine in Dnipro described their treatment at the border as absolutely brutal.
I saw people being knocked out, being beaten, being even dead. You can see people getting heart attack. People, because of it was so crowded, people are trying to cross, and it's like, for me, it was like 5 people, 10 people in 1 hour. They dropping. Came in here already. Now, when I came today, I saw my friend in the last border where they get printed on their visa to come to Poland. I saw that he's got mental breakdown. He only knows his name. He didn't even react to me when he saw me. He was talking with anyone. He was trying to get his phone and passport. I'm trying to get him, man, because the guardians and soldiers don't ever care about these. If you die, you die. I've seen a lot of people being carried with their hands in the crowd to being dropped to soldiers, but no one moves, nothing. There's no reaction. This is absolutely brutal.
Meanwhile, here are images of Ukraine authorities removing bodies after Russian strikes on a Kiev TV tower. The strike at the main TV tower in the nation's capital killed 5 people. It knocked out some state broadcasting, according to Ukrainian officials, but left the structure intact. Fresh explosions were also heard late Tuesday in Kiev and Bilacherska, 50 miles to the south, according to local media. News outlets also reported Russian missiles damaging residential buildings, a hospital in Zhytomyr, citing the major transport hub's mayor Sergei Sukamlin. And the airport operation in Kharkiv came as U.S. President Joe Biden branded Vladimir Putin a dictator, warning the sanction campaign to cripple Russia's economy would escalate and its oligarchs were being targeted. Yet this is Biden's first State of the Union address, and he hailed the resolve of the Western alliance and voiced solidarity with Ukraine as lawmakers in the U.S. Congress gave a standing ovation to the Ukrainian people. Take a look.
To all Americans, I'll be honest with you, as I always promised I would be. A Russian dictator invading a foreign country has cost around the world. And I'm taking robust action to make sure the pain of our sanctions is targeted at the Russian economy and that we use every tool at our disposal to protect American businesses and consumers. Putin's latest attack on Ukraine was premeditated and totally unprovoked. He rejected repeated efforts at diplomacy. He thought the West and NATO wouldn't respond. He thought he could divide us at home, in this chamber, in this nation. He thought he could divide us in Europe as well. But Putin was wrong. We are ready. We are united, and that's what we did. We stayed united. The battle between democracy and autocracies. Democracies are rising to the moment, and the world is clearly choosing the side of peace and security. This is the real test, and it's going to take time. So let us continue to draw inspiration from the iron will of the Ukrainian people.
Meanwhile, the United States will release 30 million barrels of oil from its strategic petroleum reserve as part of an international effort to stabilize the market after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, according to President Joe Biden in his State of the Union address. Again, let's listen in.
Tonight, I can announce the United States has worked with 30 other countries to release 60 million barrels of oil from reserves around the world. America will lead that effort, releasing 30 million barrels of our own strategic petroleum reserve. And we stand ready to do more if necessary, united with our allies.
During the same State of the Union address, U.S. President Joe Biden also announced closing the U.S. airspace to all Russian flights and vowed to penalize wealthy elites in the Russian president's inner circle. Take a look.
The Department of Justice is assembling a dedicated task force to go after the crimes of the Russian oligarchs. We're joining with European allies to find and seize their yachts, their luxury apartments, their private jets. We're coming for your ill-begotten gains. And tonight, I'm announcing that we will join our allies in closing off American airspace to all Russian flights, further isolating Russia and adding additional squeeze on their economy. He has no idea what's coming. The Department of Justice is assembling a dedicated task force to go after the crimes of the Russian oligarchs. We're joining with European allies to find and seize their yachts, their luxury apartments, their private jets. We're coming for your ill-begotten gains. And tonight, I'm announcing that we will join our allies in closing off American airspace to all Russian flights, further isolating Russia and adding additional squeeze on their economy. He has no idea what's coming.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky accused Russia, which has launched an invasion of his country, of seeking to erase Ukrainians, their country, and their history. Take a look.
Вони нічого не знають про нашу столицю, про нашу історію. Але у них є наказ стерти нашу історію, стерти нашу країну, стерти нас усіх.
In that video address, the Ukrainian leader also said a missile strike on a target at the site of a Holocaust massacre shows that for many people in Russia, our Kiev is completely foreign, unquote. The attack on Tuesday night damaged Kiev's main television mast, which was built at Babi Yar, the site of World War II's biggest slaughter of Kiev Jews and a place of memorial and pilgrimage. 5 people were killed in the strike itself, according to Ukrainian authorities. And for President Zelensky, the symbolism of the location underlined the Russian threat to Ukrainian identity. And he urged Jewish people around the world to speak up. Let's listen in.
Звертаюсь зараз до всіх. Тому дуже важливо, щоб саме зараз, саме ви, мільйони євреїв по всьому світу не мовчали.
Meanwhile, the United Kingdom said 100,000 Ukrainians could enter the country for 12 months, relaxing its immigration requirements for refugees fleeing Russia's invasion. Here's Ashley Espiritu for the details.
The UK on Tuesday relaxed its immigration requirements for Ukrainians fleeing Russia's invasion after criticism it was not going far enough to accommodate refugees. Home Secretary Priti Patel said some 100,000 Ukrainians could enter the country for 12 months as a result of changes to criteria for close family members. She told Parliament there is no limit on the numbers eligible, adding that those arriving will be able to work and access public funds.
Firstly, we are establishing an expansive Ukrainian family scheme so that British nationals and people settled in the UK can bring a wider group of family members to the UK, extending eligibility to parents, grandparents, adult offspring, siblings and their immediate family members. And where family members of British nationals do not meet the usual eligibility criteria, but do pass all security checks, we will give them permission to enter the UK outside the usual rules for 12 months. Family members of British nationals resident in the Ukraine who need a UK visa can apply through the temporary location in Lviv or through visa application centres in Poland, Moldova, Romania and Hungary.
London has faced calls to match an EU plan to allow Ukrainians with passports bearing biometric data to enter the bloc without a visa and stay for up to 3 years. In response to the criticism, a junior minister in Patel's department tweeted suggesting Ukrainians could still apply for seasonal worker visas designed for fruit pickers. He later deleted this tweet. Newspaper reports have also highlighted several cases where Ukrainians without visas have been prevented from using Eurostar train services to get from Paris to London. But Patel called the proposal a very generous, expansive and unprecedented package and ruled out demands for visa waivers, given that Russian troops are seeking to infiltrate and merge with Ukrainian forces. Patel added, "We have a collective duty to keep the British people safe, and this approach is based on the strongest security advice." Patel also outlined plans for Ukrainians who do not have family ties to come to the UK by being sponsored by individuals, charities, businesses and communities. Leave to remain would also be granted for 12 months and would have no limit on numbers, she added. Prime Minister Boris Johnson suggested on a visit to Poland earlier on Tuesday that more than 200 Ukrainians could be eligible as a result of the UK scheme. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, I'm Ashley Spiritu, and we live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, hundreds of protesters rallied in London's Trafalgar Square against Russia's invasion of Ukraine as Russia continues shelling Ukraine's cities and the West prepares more sanctions. In retaliation, here's Ryan Florentino From our EBC UK Bureau, Ryan.
Russian President Vladimir Putin laid out conditions on Monday for ending his invasion of Ukraine, as Moscow forces shelled the country's second city and Western nations prepared even more sanctions. Putin's ultimatum came as Moscow and Kyiv held their first talks since the outbreak of war last Thursday, which shocked the world and provoked a massive diplomatic, economic, cultural, and sporting backlash. Hundreds of protesters rally in London's Trafalgar Square against Russia's invasion of Ukraine to voice their opinions. Let's have a look.
Feel heartbroken, have my family there, my wife's family there, my friends are there, everyone I grew up with are there. Nobody has fled, everyone is staying. People are basically helping to defend Kyiv. They are there. They prepared Molotov cocktails. Basically, I can see the Instagram stories of my friends. It's not a cinema anymore. It's like it is real. When you see the explosions, at first when I saw that, I felt like a movie. But it's because movies are so realistic now. But it's not a movie, and it feels so surreal. Like it's first you're in denial. Like it's not happening. But then it's just when the realization comes, you just it feels really sad and it's just impossible.
It's very, very, very hard, really difficult. If you can see here Ukrainians, I think in every town, anywhere in the world, all Ukrainians don't sleep, they don't eat, I cannot say depressed, but they all having very unbelievably difficult time, especially after you talk to your family.
British Transport Secretary Grant Shapps on Monday ordered all UK seaports to turn away Russian vessels in response to the country's invasion of Ukraine. The banning order applied to any ship which they have reason to believe is operated by any person connected with Russia, or on a sanctions list, he tweeted. Available flight options to return to the UK are limited, and the Russian economy is becoming increasingly volatile, the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office tweeted. The UK government warned Tuesday that Russian President Vladimir Putin and his commanders in Ukraine could face prosecution for war crimes as indiscriminate shelling hit one city under invasion. The front pages of British newspapers carried photographs of two young girls killed by Russian attacks in Ukraine and the words of a doctor as he tried to save one of them, saying, "Show this to Putin." Reporting from the United Kingdom, I am Ryan Florentino, and we live in interesting times.
Thank you, Ryan. Meanwhile, African and Indian students spoke about discrimination and other difficulties they face as they try to flee Ukraine from Lviv. More than 660,000 refugees have fled the conflict in Ukraine for safety in neighboring countries, while around 1 million people are estimated to be internally displaced, according to the United Nations. Let's take a look.
Après, moi je peux l'affirmer, les militaires qui sont là et d'autres agents de sécurité, ils vous le disent, vous allez rester ici, vous fuyez la guerre, restez ici, vous allez combattre avec nous, vous ne partez pas, et surtout vous les Noirs, ce sont des histoires qui se disent, pas même que non, on peut les cacher.
Yeah, yesterday in the train itself, it happened to all of us. Like we were trying to board on the train, but they were pushing the Ukrainians first. They were pushing the Ukrainians. Then somehow we managed to push the girls first. We boarded the trains first, and the boys boarded the trains later. So it was, it's happening over there.
We had to pick some friends, which they were coming using another train. So when we picked them, we wanted to go to the train. We are stopped outside not to go in. But the other people, like the Ukrainians, they can go in. So that's a big problem. So we are here looking for another means to get to the border. We wanted to go to Hungary.
At the northwestern entrance to the Ukrainian capital across the Irpin River, people are fleeing the advancing Russian forces using a makeshift pedestrian bridge. Some civilians are transporting their groceries while soldiers are carrying across weapons. Ukrainian forces destroyed several bridges around Kiev to help stall the Russian invasion of the capital. Take a look.
Сьогодні ми ж бачимо, тут через цей міст, який підірваний вже, це єдиний є піший проход на Київ.
Я не можу сказати, скільки людей тут моїх зі мною стоїть з міркувань безпеки. Але ми зараз знаходимося тут у спеціальній евакуаційній рятувальній місії по виводу з Ірпіня представників посольства Сполучених Штатів Америки в Україні, які не встигли евакуюватися.
Meanwhile, the European Union today banned broadcast of Russian state media RT and Sputnik as part of a sweeping package of sanctions over President Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Today, we are taking an important step against Putin's manipulation operation and turning off the tap for Russian state-controlled media in the EU, the bloc's foreign policy chief Josef Borrell said in a statement. And tech giant Apple announced a halt in all product sales in Russia, the latest fallout over Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. Western governments, sporting organizations, and big companies have cut Russia off or dealt it punishing sanctions over the internationally condemned attack on its neighbor. The iPhone maker also announced Apple Pay and other services have been limited, while Russian state-owned media RT and Sputnik news apps were no longer available for download outside Russia. Meanwhile, this just in, Spain will supply offensive military hardware to Ukraine following Russia's invasion of its pro-Western neighbor, according to Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, telling this to Parliament today. Until now, Spain had said it would send military support only as part of a wider package unveiled by the EU on Sunday, in which Brussels agreed to unblock 450 million euros for member states to buy arms for Ukraine. Sanchez said Russian President Vladimir Putin's decision to invade Ukraine, quote, is a brutal attempt to stop the construction of a European space based on values radically opposed to the authoritarianism he represents, unquote. And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
Karapatan natin lahat na iboto ang karapat-dapat! Tama! Lahat ng Pilipino pwedeng bumoto!
Kung rehistrado ka.
Ha?
Ang lahat ng Pilipinong rehistrado lamang ang maaaring bumoto. 1 taon ang ibinibigay ng Commission on Elections para magparehistro ang mga Pilipinong boboto sa darating na eleksyon. Kailangan gawin ito para maiwasan ang tinatawag na flying voters. Teka, lahat ba kayo nagparehistro na?
Opo! Rehistrado kami lahat!
Bakit tahimik ka? Hindi ka nakapagrehistro, no?
Nakakalimutan ko.
Hindi ka pwedeng bumoto. Mabuti pa, bumili ka na lang ng balot.
Pagka kami pa bumili ng balot, pwede na kami bumoto.
Hindi, pero mabubusog ka. Para sa karagdagang kaalaman, makipag-ugnayan lang sa pinakamalapit na barangay o bisitahin ang COMELEC website.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Welcome back. The Department of Health today logged 866 new cases of COVID-19, and that is the lowest single-day tally so far for this year. The figure is higher than the 421 infections reported on December 28 last year, the last time the country saw the lowest three-digit daily new cases. It pushed the overall tally of confirmed infections to 3,663,920. The active cases went down 50,827 after 1,622 new recoveries were logged. About 474 of the active cases are asymptomatic, 45,862 are mild, 2,776 are moderate, 1,417 are severe, and 298 are critical. Meantime, the total recovered cases increased to 3,556,589. The death toll has reached 56,504, with 53 new deaths, representing 1.54% of overall cases. Meanwhile, the United States warned citizens against traveling to Hong Kong today, citing the risk of children being separated from their parents as the Chinese city imposes controversial COVID isolation policies. The State Department upgraded Hong Kong to its highest do not travel warning due to COVID-related restrictions, including the risk of parents and children being separated, unquote. In some cases, it said children in Hong Kong who test positive have been separated from their parents and kept in isolation until they meet local hospital discharge requirements. That according to the State Department. The Asian financial hub is in the grip of its worst coronavirus outbreak, registering tens of thousands of new cases each day, overwhelming hospitals and shattering the city's zero COVID strategy. China has ordered local officials to stamp out the outbreak, even as studies estimate as many as a quarter of the city's residents may have been infected in the current wave. Meanwhile, riot police in New Zealand, fair warning on the video you're about to see. There may be some graphic content in it. Riot police in New Zealand moved to end the weeks-long occupation of anti-vaccination demonstrators outside Parliament, clearing camps and trucks. At least 3 officers received minor injuries in the operation to clear the parliamentary precinct, which left a few dozen angry protesters milling on nearby streets, yelling insults. Residents have complained about being abused by protesters for wearing masks, while schools and businesses close to the camp have closed for safety reasons. In recent weeks, police have accused protesters of hurling human feces at them, spraying a stinging substance at officers, and slashing tires of police cars. In other news, testing has confirmed a case of avian influenza on a Delaware poultry farm, and it showed increased mortality over the past few days. Here's Myla Simbulan from our Pennsylvania Bureau. Myla.
In the state of Delaware, a case of avian influenza on a poultry farm has been confirmed, showing an increase in poultry deaths over the past few days. This after an investigation by the Delaware Department of Agriculture, or DDA, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture, or USDA's National Veterinary Services Laboratory, has confirmed poultry from this farm have tested positive for the highly pathogenic H5N1 and avian influenza HPN1. As of date, there is no public health concern, and avian influenza does not affect poultry meat or egg products. This remains safe to eat. The DDA and its partner agencies, including the USDA, are working to contain the situation, including sampling and quarantining nearby poultry flocks. Avian influenza is an airborne respiratory virus that spreads easily among chickens through nasal and eye secretions as well as manure. The virus can be spread in various ways from flock to flock, including by wild birds through contact with infected poultry, by equipment, and on the clothing and shoes of caretakers. The said farm is under quarantine to curb infecting other flocks in the state. The birds in the affected farm will be depopulated to prevent the spread of disease and not enter the food system. Due to the severity of the avian influenza, anyone found trespassing on a quarantine farm will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. The avian influenza detection was the highly pathogenic H5 type, which is more severe and can cause high mortality in poultry flocks. It is the same strain confirmed in other states and among wild birds in the Atlantic Flyway. This is the first case of HPAI in commercial poultry in Delaware since 2004. Meanwhile, the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture reminds the state to stay vigilant and review biosecurity practices. HPAI is very contagious and can make wild and domesticated birds very sick and lead to death. Bird owners should step up biosecurity efforts to protect their flock. Pennsylvania's 7.1 billion poultry industry at large. As of February 17, 2022, the states of Indiana and Kentucky have reported commercial affected flocks, and Virginia has reported a backyard affected flock of mixed birds. Myla Simbulan, Eagle News, Swarthmore, Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Myla. Meanwhile, emergency services ordered some Sydney residents to prepare to flee as heavy rainfall barreled down Australia's east coast, burying towns in floodwater, killing 13 and putting hundreds of thousands at risk. A week-long torrential downpour has swollen rivers and reservoirs past bursting point, causing chaos in an area 800 kilometers long. From Brisbane to Sydney, more than 30 evacuation warnings are in place and several dams are overflowing, with some near Sydney under threat of bursting. Terrified residents have sought refuge on higher ground in makeshift evacuation centers or by clambering into attics or onto rooftops, praying for rescue by boat or helicopter. Scientists say climate change is making Australia's floods, bushfires, cyclones, and droughts more frequent and more intense. Australia is at the forefront of severe climate change. Temperatures are rising faster in Australia than the global average, and higher temperatures mean the atmosphere holds more moisture, meaning rainfall events are becoming more extreme. In other news, New Zealand authorities arrested 46 people as part of an international operation into tens of thousands of accounts possessing and sharing child sexual abuse material online, according to Europol today. The arrests were part of a probe launched in 2019 after an online service provider's report indicated a large number of offenders used the platform to exchange particularly disturbing child abuse images, according to Europe's Law Enforcement Cooperation Agency. The report included references to imagery depicting sadistic acts of sexual abuse of infants and children, according to a Europol statement. The investigation identified more than 90,000 online accounts worldwide, and information was shared with relevant national authorities, according to Europol. The agency said 100 suspects were identified across the European Union, while 836 cases were opened internationally. President Duterte said he's worried about the resurgence of illegal drugs, hoping his successor would continue his campaign against the drug menace. Take a look.
There was this alarm. He was the one who issued the alarm with a missing daughter. Then it was found out that he raped the child his daughter, killed her, at tinago niya doon sa imburna sa likod ng bahay niya. Ito yung, it simply drives me crazy. Itong mga ito na putulan yung ulo ng asawa mo, and it is happening every day. It has been there since the inception of the drug problem. Never mind about the ICC, wala akong pakialam dyan. Does not worry me a bit, you know. But itong sa drugs, I just hope that somebody, maybe kung hindi yung talagang presidente, would find the resolve to just continue with the drive against drug, because I said it will destroy our country. It will really destroy our country. At you know, lahat tayo, we're getting old. As a matter of fact, we're about to make the exit na. Ang problema is the next generation. You have to protect the next generation, because if not, then they will have a serious problem in their hands.
His report to President Duterte, Department of the Interior and Local Government Secretary Eduardo Año said, based on the latest report, the law enforcers have arrested 1,658 individuals and confiscated 159 million pesos worth of illegal drugs in 1,230 anti-illegal drug operations. Crude surged past $113 a barrel Wednesday, and equity sank with investors growing increasingly fearful about the Ukraine war's impact on global energy supplies and the economic recovery. The main source of unease on trading floors is crude, which has rocketed since Russia began preparing to invade. On Wednesday, Brent topped $110 for the first time since 2014, and WTI followed suit hours later to hit a 2013 high. In afternoon Asian trade, Brent rose as high as 113.02, and WTI peaked at 111.50 centavos per barrel. Wall Street and European markets stumbled Tuesday, and the losses largely flowed through to Asia, which had enjoyed 2 days of relative calm, though the selling was not as severe. Tokyo, Hong Kong, Mumbai, and Manila lost more than 1%, while there were also losses in Shanghai, Singapore, Taipei, Jakarta, Bangkok, and Wellington. However, Sydney and Seoul eked out marginal gains. German unemployment dropped to pre-pandemic levels in February, 2 years after the coronavirus shuttered large parts of their economy, according to official figures published Wednesday. The jobless rate stood at 5% in February on a seasonally adjusted basis, according to the BA Federal Labor Agency, the same level as in February last year. Employment had followed a steady upwards trend, BA Chairman Detlef Schill said in a statement, despite Germany's economic struggles around the turn of the year. The impact of the war in Ukraine is not yet reflected in the figures, according to Schill, with the potential that the economic fallout from the Russian invasion at the end of February could unsettle the job market once again. The figures will be closely watched by policymakers at the European Central Bank, looking out for signs that a tighter labor market could lead to more sustained inflation. Lower joblessness could increase wage demands, supporting price rises across the economy. Back here in the country, the shift to Alert Level 1 in more parts of the Philippines will generate an estimated 9.4 billion pesos per week of economic activity in gross value-added terms. And that is according to the National Economic and Development Authority. Let's listen in.
Yung iuulat ko po ngayon ay yung benepisyo ng Alert Level 1, at ito ay nagpapakita na we are really on the road to recovery. But we need to accelerate and sustain para mabawi po natin ang mga nawala sa atin dahil sa pandemic. Simula po tayo sa recent economic developments. The Philippine economy grew by 5.6% in 2021. Ito ay mas mataas sa expectation kasi yung sinasabi ng mga analysts 5 to 5.5%. Nanggaling po tayo sa mataas na growth bago yung pandemic at an average of more than 6 to 7%. Pero bigla itong bumaba dahil sa pagpasok ng COVID-19 sa 2020, minus 9.6% yung nawala sa atin at nakabawi po tayo ng 5.6%. At naniniwala kami kaya po natin umabot ng 7 to 9% this year kung magtutulungan po tayo. In terms of employment, ay palapit na tayo sa pre-pandemic level natin. Yung nakakulay na green, yan yung ating unemployment bago pumasok yung COVID-19, yung January 2020. Bigla itong sumipa to 17.6%, yung nag-impose tayo ng strictest ECQ. Pero yung nag-relax na tayo at nag-manage tayo ng risk at nagbukas po tayo ng iba't ibang sektor ng ekonomiya, pababa ito ng pababa to 10% to 8.7% at yung latest ay 6.6%. Malapit na ito sa atin pre-pandemic na unemployment rate. Ngunit, as the economy bounces back, we now have to recover all the losses we experienced in the last 2 years. Yung total amount na nawala sa atin ay 3.8 trillion pesos. If not for the pandemic, dapat tuloy-tuloy yung ating growth. Abot tayo ng 25.3 trillion peso economy by 2022. Pero dahil sa pandemic, nag-slide po tayo to 17.9 trillion yung taong 2020. Pero nakikita naman natin yung dahan-dahan na pagtaas ng ating ekonomiya. Pero yung gap between before COVID and with COVID ay malaki, 3.8 trillion.
And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Mr. Pwede! Bawal kang lumabas ng bahay kung dala mo yung nasa tagiliran mo! Mr. Bawal, ito? Protection lang to! Di mo kailangan yan! At higit sa lahat, bawal yan!
Ayon sa Omnibus Election Code, ang pagdadala ng deadly weapon sa araw ng eleksyon ay isang election offense.
Mr. Bawal, kala ko ba bawal magdala? Eh ano yung nasa tagiliran mo? Eto ba? Merienda lang to. Nakakagutom din kayang bumoto. Gusto mo? Ako si Mr. Bawal. Nagpapaalala sa inyo na ang delikadong kargada sa eleksyon. Hoy! Bawal yan!
Welcome back. NASA's Perseverance celebrated its first year on Mars by learning to run. Here's Philip Toledo from our Atlanta, Georgia bureau.
By the time we hit our first birthday, some of us might have been walking. But the reality is anything more than a few steps was probably a pretty big challenge. However, that's not the case for NASA's Perseverance rover for its first anniversary on Mars. According to NASA, Perseverance, the heaviest rover to rove around the red planet, recently broke the record of most distance traveled in one day, traversing over 1,000 feet or 320 meters. That may not seem like a lot by Earth standards, but Perseverance did this using AutoNav, special software that helps it navigate on its own around rocks and obstacles. This rover has had several significant firsts during its mission so far as well. It is carrying the first rock samples from another planet and serves as the home base for the first helicopter to be used on Mars. Scientists are also using it to prototype oxygen generators that might one day help with manned missions to the planet. One of Perseverance's key mission objectives is to search for signs of ancient microbial life. The rock samples already collected within the landing crater that used to be a lake billions of years ago will be critical for this. Later this year, scientists hope to get the rover to an ancient river delta in hope of getting more samples. Curious to how these samples will make it back to Earth-based scientists? Well, NASA is working with the European Space Agency to launch future missions that would collect the samples from Perseverance and bring them back home. All of us here at Learning Curve join NASA in congratulating the Perseverance team for a year of success and scientific discovery on the red planet. Philip Toledo, Eagle News.
Thank you, Philip. As always, I'll end the day on a thoughtful note. Our ability to look back and smile at our past is proof that God's plan is to keep us moving forward. This has been Eagle News International. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay alert and stay informed because we live in interesting times. Good night.